Welcome back to foxlearn. In today's video, we'll be diving into JWT authentication and authorization in ASP.NET Core using .NET 9, step by step. But before we get started, let's answer a couple of important questions. What is JWT? JWT, or JSON Web Token, is a compact, URL-safe way to represent claims between two parties. It's commonly used for securely transmitting information, like user authentication and authorization in web applications. So where is JWT used? Well, JWT is widely used in scenarios where stateless authentication is required. For example, it's the backbone of token-based authentication in modern web APIs and single-page applications (SPAs). It allows the server to authenticate and authorize requests without having to store session data. Now that we understand what JWT is and where it's used, let's move on to the implementation. Open Visual Studio and create a new project. Choose the ASP.NET Core Web App Model View Controller template, then click Next. Give your project a name, select .NET 9 as the target framework. For the authentication type, choose Individual Accounts. This lets us manage user sign-ins and identities. Once that's set, just click Create to get started. Open appsettings.json and update the connection string so it points to your SQL Server database. Go ahead and run the project, then register a new user. This will automatically add some initial user data to your database. Next, open SQL Server Management Studio. Go to the ASP.NET Roles table and insert some roles manually. Then add the corresponding entries to the ASP.NET User Roles table. Now, switch back to Visual Studio and install the necessary NuGet packages for JWT support and Swagger integration. Go back to your app settings.json file and add a JWT settings section. This will hold your secret key, audience, and issuer information. To create your secret key, use the random number generator class to generate a byte array, and then convert it to a base 64 string. Make sure to copy the secret key into the secret property under the JWT settings section in your configuration file. Next, we'll configure identity services in our application. In the program.cs file, add the following line to register identity with support for user and role management. We're also enabling account confirmation before sign-in, specifying the use of Entity Framework for data storage, and including the default token providers for things like password resets and email confirmation. Now, we will read the JWT settings from the configuration file using the get section method, and then retrieve the secret key, which we will use later to sign our JWT tokens. Next, we configure authentication services to use JWT bearer tokens. We set the default authentication and challenge schemes to JWT bearer. Then, in the JWT bearer options, we define the token validation parameters. We validate the issuer, audience, token lifetime, and the signing key. The valid issuer and audience values are pulled from our JWT settings, and the signing key is created using the secret key from our configuration, encoded as a symmetric security key. To set up Swagger with JWT Authentication, include the following code inside the Add Swagger Gen method. This tells Swagger to support and use JWT bearer tokens. First, we create a Swagger doc version called V1 with the title JWT. This is just the basic setup for your API documentation. Next, we define a security scheme using the OpenAPI Security Scheme class. Here, we tell Swagger that we're using the bearer scheme with JWT tokens. We also add a short description to guide users on how to enter their token and link this scheme to the default JWT authentication used by ASP.NET Core through the reference property. Then, we register this security scheme in Swagger using add security definition, which makes it show up in the Swagger UI. After that, we use add security requirement to tell Swagger that this scheme should apply globally, or to specific endpoints if needed. In short, this setup tells Swagger how to send your JWT token in the authorization header, so you can easily test protected endpoints without leaving the Swagger UI. We will create a new service called Auth service, responsible for generating JWT tokens. This class will handle token creation based on the user's identity and assigned roles. It uses ASP.NET Identity's built-in user manager, along with configuration values from the appsettings.json file to build and sign the token. We inject two dependencies here: the configuration interface to read the JWT settings from the application's configuration, and User Manager to access user details and roles. The key method in this class is generate JWT token async. It takes an identity user object and returns a signed JWT token as a string. First, we get the JWT settings from the configuration, things like the secret key, issuer, and audience, which are all stored in appsettings.json file. Next, we convert the secret key into a byte array and create signing credentials using HMACSHA-256 to ensure the token is secure and can't be tampered with. After that, we build a list of claims, basically bits of user info we want to include in the token, like the username, email, and roles. In this method, we manually add claims for the username, user ID, and email. Then, we retrieve all roles assigned to the user and add those as role claims. With the claims and credentials ready, we create the JWT token by defining the issuer, audience, expiration time, set here to 60 minutes, and signing credentials. Finally, we use JWT Security Token Handler to write and return the token as a string, ready to be used in the authorization header for secure API calls. Now let's create an auth controller to handle login requests and return JWTs. Inside the controller, we inject two services using constructor injection. First, Auth service. This is our custom class that handles JWT token generation. Second, User Manager of Identity User. This is provided by ASP.NET Core Identity and gives us access to user-related operations, like finding users or checking passwords. This action method is invoked when a POST request is sent to API/auth/login. It expects a JSON payload in the request body, which is automatically bound to a login model object. The login model typically contains two properties, username and password. The login validation process works as follows. We attempt to find the user by their username. If the user is found, we verify the provided password using check password async. If both checks succeed, the user is considered successfully authenticated. Once the user credentials are verified, we use our Auth service to generate a JWT token for them. Then, we send the token back to the client wrapped in a JSON object like this. This token can now be used by the client in the authorization header when calling protected endpoints. If the user is not found or the password is incorrect, we return an HTTP 401 unauthorized response. This tells the client the login attempt failed. To test authorization, we'll create the values controller, define a get secure data action, and make sure to decorate it with the authorize attribute. Run the project and open Swagger. Select the login endpoint to sign in and retrieve your JWT token. After that, click the Authorize button in Swagger and paste the token into the prompt. If your token is valid, you'll be able to access the protected API endpoints without any issues. But if the token is missing or invalid, Swagger will return an unauthorized error, blocking access to those endpoints. And that's how the Auth controller handles login and JWT token generation in an ASP.NET Core Web API. In the next video, we'll show how to use this token to call a protected API. If you found this tutorial helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you don't miss future .NET tutorials from foxlearn. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.